Welcome to AI Bytes, where every week in under 15 minutes we talk about the latest developments in the world of artificial intelligence, particularly as it relates to the creative industries.
And this week, we're going to talk about Marey Realism by Moonvalley, a new model that was released. We're going to talk about some tips and tricks on how to apply existing cinematography rules to your AI productions. And we're going to talk about the Windsurf deal.
We work a lot with Comfy UI, and Comfy UI has been adding a lot of API nodes for third party services that they can connect to. And one of those services was Marey Realism models by Moonvalley. So we got kind of curious and we wanted to actually see how they work. How did you find it, Mila?
Honestly, kind of underwhelming. I understand what they're going for is that the entire model has been trained on licensed data, so it makes it very appealing to businesses to use this. But as an image to video, at least that's what I tried here, the results were kind of hit and miss for the most part. I couldn't get something decent out of it. Where also I'm losing a lot of that control, where if I had it using it in Comfy and using some of the open source models, I would have control to make it better, where here I don't. And I think there's already a lot of better commercialized image to video models out there that do much better than this.
Yeah, I mean, every model maybe wants to be prompted in a little bit different way. So I'm not potentially very much used to what Marey Realism wants, but I'm just going to share like a few attempts that I had. So this is one of them. I'm starting with an image, very close up image of this cat. And I'm trying to get the camera to essentially pull out so that you kind of expose more of the scene. I wanted the cat to be static and you expose more of the scene. And I mean, everything about this just doesn't
Mm.
make sense. Maybe it's the way I'm prompting it. I don't know. I'll share another attempt that I had. This was the other attempt that was a little bit closer. I went and made an end image and I gave the end image to it
Right.
as well.
But
And
that just
it
seems like
just,
it's going from the first image to the last image, but
yeah, it
I
just
could do that with
transitioned.
Canva probably.
Exactly, exactly. And a camera movement is actually the opposite of what I was describing here. The camera is pushing in instead of pulling out.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah, I think I did a couple of examples of trying to do this with the
right.
image of the Roman battlefield, and this is the best I could get out of it. But you can see it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
But actually, I tried
right.
this with Van, and it made a lot more sense than what's happening here. And actually, a couple of my generations got blocked because it said that it doesn't follow the guidelines and they can't show it. So that's just automatically just having censorship on something that seems pretty simple. So I
Yeah.
mean, I'm gonna cut them a slack because they probably just released this, don't want to like do anything that makes people mad, but it's quite a bit of censorship to start with.
So there's that, and also it's actually really expensive to get the hang of
It's
this. Like you just
extremely
do,
expensive. That's another thing. Yeah,
yeah. So I don't know. I think for something that's this expensive to experiment with, I think it needs to work a lot better out of the box. That's kind of my
I agree.
assessment.
Yeah.
But if listeners and slash viewers, if you guys have played around with Marey Realism and have any tips and tricks on how to get better results, we'd love to hear about them. Just drop a comment and let us know.
Speaking of quality, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can apply existing rules and techniques in videography and cinematography into when we're producing AI videos. And I say this because I have no background of cinematography. And when I started doing AI videos, I could get pixel perfect images or videos, but there's always something missing in a lot of what I produce. And I saw this amazing video that somebody posted on Reddit that they had produced, and I just want to share that with you. One second.
I already see some of the ingredients going into this.
So this is a really well done video. The character consistency is amazing. The quality of the video in general is one of the better videos I've seen done by the open source community, I would say. But there was something that felt off, and I couldn't put my finger on it because I don't have cinematography background. And I was going through the comments, and somebody mentioned that this could help your video. And I read up on it and I was like, oh wow, this actually explains a lot of stuff about things I have done in the past. It's just one rule that I want to talk about. Is the 180 rule. And one thing you notice here is probably the video is very jumpy. When the video switches from one scene to another, there's no flow and it feels a little bit jumping from one side to the other. And so this is the scene we're looking at, right? So in the
Right.
180 rule is to make your audience feel engaged and keep them engaged throughout the scene as you do cuts. So let's talk about what the 180 rule is. So let's say in that scene, we're going to look from the above to make things a little bit easier to understand. If we draw a line between the two characters that are talking to each other, and your initial shot is the two of them from this side of the line, in your
Ah,
consequence shots, you should stay on the same line within that. So when we switch from one character to the
right.
other and we just want to show line, your camera cannot cross this line, because when the camera
Got
crosses
it.
this line, you lose the spatial understanding of the scene,
Right.
especially if the other character is not even present in the scene. So in that video, and from the first shot to the second shot, they go to the other side of the line, and they kept switching between the line. And this just kind of throws off the audience and like how it's going. It's not something you understand consciously, but subconsciously makes it very hard to follow. Now, this is just like one application of the rule 180. And like, I mean, it's just a rule. You can break it, but you have to break
If
it
you know what you're doing.
for a reason. Exactly. You should not
Yeah.
break this if you don't have a reason. And
Right.
this applies to other scenes as well. So let's say I don't have a drawing for it, but let's say a car is driving, leaving the house and driving from right to left. And in the next scene, you also show the car driving from right to left. That means they're still leaving the house. But if in the next scene you switch the car driving from left to right, the audience thinks that the car is going back
They're
to the
coming
car.
back. Right.
Exactly. So this rule can apply, and you can also use it. You can break it to make an effect, but in general, you
Right.
should not be breaking it. Anyways, I thought that was very cool and a very simple rule to make sure you follow when you do things, and makes life a lot easier.
That's so cool. So one of the things that I've learned in this time that we've been playing around with this stuff, and for the audience, if you don't know, we're both engineers. We have no artistic bone in our bodies, but I've kind of realized that like we're playing around with all these like cool tools that allow us to make really, really good looking artifacts, basically, whether it's images or videos, but we still don't know what to make. And this is like one interesting element of what's happening with AI. Like I can make really, really amazing photos that I had no means of producing before, but that doesn't really give me talent in any way.
Exactly. Yeah.
I kind of realized this when I saw some videos on TikTok that were like AI generated videos, and they were so bad, like really low quality videos, but they had millions of views. And what I realized, the reason why they have millions of views, it doesn't matter how bad the quality is. What happens is that the storyline hooks you from beginning to end. So that was like a different element of like, things that people have figured out in terms of storytelling and the artistry that goes into producing these things, that those of us
Yeah.
that are kind of new to the scene, because like AI just opened the door and removed the production barrier, we still need to figure that stuff out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But also at the same time, I don't believe that just because I can generate images and generate videos, I should become an artist. And I think what I can do, or a lot of people can do, is enable the artist to make better videos and
Right. Yeah.
images using the tools. And I think that should be the goal. Not the goal shouldn't be that we all become artists, because I enjoy doing this and I enjoy doing like learning about it. But there needs to be a marriage between like the talent that has already been doing this for so long and the ability to like enable the
Yeah.
community to kind of learn. And if you are a new person that wants to be an artist, this is the perfect time, because you can do both at the same time now. That's
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it.
There's no production barrier for you anymore.
Exactly.
The last thing we wanted to talk about today is something that has been making big rounds in the tech world over the last, I would say, week. And that was the acquisition of Windsurf. So let me bring this up. So Windsurf is a tool for software developers to generate code so they can do their job faster. Coding assistants, they're called. They've been getting a lot of traction. So one of the Windsurf was one of the big ones, and they were in talks to get acquired by OpenAI, and that didn't happen. Usually, when these contracts get signed, there's something called the exclusivity clause, which means once they're in the conversation to have the acquisition, you can't go like try to find competitive buyers or whatever. But I guess OpenAI didn't close the deal within that exclusivity window. So as soon as that expired, Google kind of swept in and didn't buy the company. They just basically just took the top talent and got a non-exclusive license to the product and all the tech, and just left the rest of it in place, which is kind of not a kosher thing to do in the tech world, because all the employees who are kind of left behind, they basically have a company that is headless, and they took a risk joining a startup that is not stable, and all the rewards kind of get reaped by the top founders, and then the rest of the company is kind of left in place.
They're still, yeah, they're standing holding the bag. That sounds terrible for somebody
Exactly.
that joined the startup with all that risk.
It's terrible for them individually, and it's terrible for the ecosystem, because the whole point of, if you're a talented software developer or any kind of designer, even like HR, and you work in this world, you can go and get a very good job at a big company, with have your stability, have your big salary. So you're basically, there's no incentive for you to join a fledgling startup. The whole point of doing the fledgling startup thing, like you may not be the founder at that stage, but you're still taking a risk going to a
Exactly.
startup. And the point is that you get an outsized reward when the startup does well. But this is a new model that is kind of taking hold in Silicon Valley, where these big companies, instead of buying the company, they just hire on the parts that they want, and they just leave the rest. So this is the fourth acquisition in the tech world over the last few months from AI companies that has been done with this structure.
So is there a reason for this, that they're taking this approach now all of a sudden and more of them?
Well, the reason is antitrust, because anytime a big company buys a smaller one, regulators have been going after them for this. And what they haven't realized is, by making that risky for the big companies, they've essentially broken this essential part of the startup ecosystem, where like if a company gets launched in Silicon Valley and it only does like moderately well, the fact that they have the possibility of getting bought by another company is a huge factor in the kinds of risks that people would take, because it's still, in that scenario, it's still worth it for them to take a risk. But now that element is going away, that reward system is going away, so people are just not going to take the risk as much.
You might as well just go join the big companies
Exactly.
from the start.
Especially if you are not the founder and you are not going to be the one
Exactly.
getting
Right.
poached by the big companies, and you're going to be holding the bag at the end. Have you ever heard of Chesterton's fence?
No.
So Chesterton's fence is this parable. There's this philosopher named G.K. Chesterton, and the parable is like, if you're in a field and you come across a fence and you don't know why the fence is there, you don't just remove the field, because people before you actually put that fence in there for a reason, and you may not understand the consequences of you removing that field. And this is just a
Yeah.
perfect example of it, because they just destroyed this. The regulators kind of come in, just remove this system that has evolved over time, and these unforeseen consequences happen.
Hey, Chesterton must have been a cattle rancher.
Probably was.
That's one of
He
the
grew
first
up on
rules in
one.
the cattle ranch. You go through a gate, you leave it, you found it. You don't close it
Yeah.
because you thought it's open. You don't open it because you thought it should be closed.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So to put a closing bit on this Windsurf bit is, another company kind of did sweep in this week and bought the rest of it. So there
The
was
rest of
another coding
what?
startup, the
Like,
rest of Windsurf. So
the
Windsurf
the rest
had,
of a non-existing company anymore?
well, they had like $100 million ARR or something like that. So it's not a trivial company. They still
Right.
had a lot of staff left. They still kind of had some IP left, but it's just a company whose entire like leadership layer has been
Left.
just
Right.
decapitated.
Removed.
So
Yeah.
yeah, they don't really do well in the long run. Ben Thompson, who's a very well respected kind of tech analyst, his theory on this is that this company Cognition that bought what was left of Windsurf basically came in and agreed to do this deal and just use whatever money that Windsurf was having, because they haven't published the price anywhere. And his theory is that they just took whatever cash Windsurf had and they paid out the employees to like get the IP and the and like buy out the equity, and that's, and gives them a bit of a payday. And that's kind of how this deal went down. And we'll see if there's more of these, because this is, like I said, just in the last few months, this is the fourth deal of this
Yeah,
structure
sounds like they're
that
gonna
has
keep
happened.
doing this. I mean, why not? Yeah, I guess what we can conclude from that is when you try to manipulate the market in by adding regulations, the market will find a way, and not always necessarily the best way, not productive for everybody here.
Yeah, Mr. Chesterton warned us. We'll see
Yep.
where it leads. All right, I think that's all we have.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
I'll see you
We'll
next
see you
week.
next week.